материальных трудностей помочь диалогу и обследованию госудительности. Поддерживать участие прокурора, которые подменяют, приходят в конкретно, все станет дальше прокурор, система Дума. По указанию в отношении обвиняемого Keikovic, а мер в течение
What we believe from conversations is that what led up to this homicide, to this murder, is that there was another party involved in planning that.
Yes. It was Kevin Knathel, my foster father. It was Kevin's idea, and it was talked about after we were having relations.
They were responding to a 911 call about a break-in, but ended up arresting the woman's daughter. 16-year-old Julia Egler is accused of shooting and killing her mother and her mother's boyfriend before police say she placed a phony 911 call for help.
In this day and age, a lot of young people look up to Instagram models and influencers. Maybe it is because of the money, the fame, or the good looks, or maybe it is a combination of all three. But it is important to remember that just because you have a large following online, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good person. That's something that became quite clear in this story. This is the case of a 21-year-old Moldovan Instagram influencer named Anna Keikovic. It is a story so shocking and disturbing that it will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about those picture-perfect Instagram stars. Anna Keikovic was born in 1999 to very wealthy parents who were known to give her everything she wanted. She and her mother, Praskovya, were particularly close and did everything together. Anna's father was a successful businessman and landowner who had even run for governor. He and Anna's mother eventually did separate, but he continued to pay for Anna and her mother's lavish lifestyle. Anna had high aspirations and was training to be a medic with the hopes of eventually becoming a doctor. But she had already found some success at a young age as an Instagram influencer. She had over 10,000 followers on the platform and would often post provocative pictures like this one of her posing by the pool. Anna was stunningly beautiful and knew how to use her looks to her advantage. Due to her online success and hard work, she already had her own apartment by 21 years old and was living the life of her dreams. Her professors knew her to be a hardworking student who performed well, and she truly seemed to have a lot of promise. She was definitely on track to become quite successful, just like her parents. But all of that changed in December 2020 when the unthinkable happened. Anna's mother, Praskovya, had just returned home from a long business trip, and as soon as she reconnected with her daughter, she quickly noticed that Anna's behavior seemed to have changed. She was acting strangely and not like herself. Praskovya suspected that her daughter may have been abusing drugs or alcohol, and she was right. Not only had Anna fallen into an addiction, but she started hanging around people who were having a very bad influence upon her life. She was in a very dangerous place, and her mother knew it. Praskovya was desperate to save her daughter, and so she made some arrangements for Anna to be seen by an addiction specialist. But Anna didn't want to go to rehab, and she became absolutely enraged with her mother as soon as she suggested it. This started a massive argument, and in mere moments, her entire life would change forever. Anna turned into a completely different person than the once loving 21-year-old girl that Praskovya knew. She grabbed a sharp blade from the kitchen and then suddenly attacked her mother with it over and over, mercilessly. But she didn't stop there. She would then use that same blade to cut open her mother's chest and remove her heart and other organs. But here's the most disturbing part. She did all this while her mother was still alive and likely aware of what was going on. Praskovya would eventually die from her severe injuries. But even then, Anna had not snapped out of it or even seemed to actually process what she had done. Instead, she just went on for days as if everything was normal. She took a shower, got dressed, and then went out with her boyfriend as if it was just another typical day. Later that day, Anna confessed to her boyfriend about what she had done. At first, he didn't believe her and thought that it was some sort of sick joke. But when he later went back to her apartment and saw the grisly, bloody scene, he immediately called the cops. Anna would be arrested around 72 hours after the murder at a friend's house. Investigators were absolutely shocked by how gruesome and evil this crime was. Adding to the shock was the fact that before this, Anna hadn't had a history of violence. This all seemed to come out of nowhere, as if she had just snapped. But despite these things, from the very beginning of this investigation, the only suspect in the case was Anna. When Anna came before a judge for the first time, her bizarre behavior shocked everyone. She acted as if she could care less about where she was or the fact that she was potentially facing life in prison for murder. She didn't even bother to sit up and face the judge. Instead, she just lay down on a bench and picked at her nails. At one point, she even flashed a peace sign at the camera. Her behavior showed her truly remorseless attitude and the fact that she was a real-life monster. Take a look at the moment that Anna is approached by the press while inside the courtroom.
Вы понимаете, что вы сделали? Вы почему убили свою мать? Вы убили свою маму? Вы сожалеете о том, что вы сделали?
Anna's laughter as she is guided out of the courtroom is nothing short of terrifying. But this story doesn't end the way you would most likely suspect, because Anna didn't end up behind bars for the rest of her life as most people probably would after doing something as horrific as she did. Instead, she was basically determined to be clinically insane, which meant that she could not be held criminally responsible for her mother's murder. Instead of prison, Anna was sent away to a high-security psychiatric hospital, where it appears that she is still today. This case shocked the world for many reasons. It displayed the stark contrast between the seemingly perfect lives depicted on social media and the hidden dark realities. It also showed how substance use disorders can, at times, turn deadly when they are left unchecked. Do you think that Anna is where she belongs, or does she deserve to live out her days in prison like any other criminal would have to? Let us know what you think in the comments below.
What is your emergency? What is going on? Hello? Who had the knife?
That heart-stopping 911 call was made just moments after a teenage girl carried out one of the most horrific acts imaginable. This is the story of an 18-year-old foster child named Sabrina Zunick. In the late night hours of November 16, 2012, a 911 dispatcher received a frantic call from inside the Knofel home in Willoughby Hills, Ohio. On the phone is 13-year-old Megan, and she's screaming.
Where is your sister? Quick! What? I got everyone coming to you, honey. Where is your sister?
Megan tells the dispatcher that her sister is trying to kill her mother. She is clearly terrified and desperate for someone to come to her aid.
You could tell by the tone of her voice that it wasn't normal.
When the cops arrive at the grisly scene, they find Lisa Knofel dead with wounds all over her body. Then they see Sabrina walking out of her bedroom looking like she's a part of a horror movie.
Sabrina has a 12-inch bread knife that she is holding in her right hand. She's covered in blood.
I can see blood on the blade. I can see blood on her. Immediately, we started screaming to drop the knife. It almost like snapped her out of whatever she was in, back to some type of reality. I kicked it away from her and we put her down on the floor.
Sabrina is rushed to the hospital to be treated for the wounds she got on her hands while she was wielding the knife. The only other people who were in the home at the time of the murder besides the victim were Megan and her 3-year-old sister Haley. Their father Kevin had been away at the time on a business trip.
Sabrina was in foster care for many years before she came to the Knofels.
Sabrina landing with the Knofels really represented a fresh start for her. She went from a troubled home with their biological father and grandma to a youth shelter where she did not want to be. She's getting along with the family. She's doing great at school. She's not getting in trouble.
It seems as if for the first time in her life, Sabrina finally had the stability she'd always wanted, and that things had been looking up for her. At first, nobody could find any signs that would point towards why she would ultimately snap in such a dramatic way. The following footage is taken in the interrogation room just hours after the murder.
Tell me, please. Yeah, you remember me, right?
At this point, Sabrina still hasn't revealed anything about what happened.
Our main goal when we first interviewed Sabrina was to get Sabrina to tell us exactly what happened. We caught her coming out of the room, so we knew she did it. We wanted to know why.
What do you recall?
Yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Getting done with my homework?
Well,
I don't know. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bed.
And we're at home.
Is it possible that Sabrina could have no recollection at all about what happened? Or is she just trying to put an act on for the cops? When she continues to tell the cops that she doesn't remember anything from the night before, they try a different direction, and what they find out immediately catches their attention.
How do you get along with Kevin?
Kevin's a miracle. I mean, he's one of the one that helps me out. Because there's nothing I can deal with. And so we made agreements a long time ago that if I need anything, that I can go to Kevin.
How about with Lisa? How do you get along with her?
Me and Lisa have never been the best. She's never seemed to like me, and she's been wanting me out of the house.
If it is true that Sabrina felt unwanted in her own home, maybe that could be a motive for why she decided to kill Lisa. But things in this case are actually even a lot more complicated than they seem. Now, watch the moment when the cops try to gauge Sabrina's reaction to the news that Lisa is dead.
What's your thoughts on how Lisa is not alive now?
What?
Well, you had a knife. You his son.
I did.
You did. And Megan called the police.
It can't be true.
Bree, it is. I'm sorry.
Lisa's really dead.
Lisa's dead. Sorry.
It seems as if Sabrina truly didn't know until this moment what actually happened.
Nobody else was hurt.
Nobody else was hurt. Thank goodness.
Sabrina never denies committing the murder. She just acts confused when I tell her that she's the one who killed Lisa Knaefel. We could have waited here for 4 days, and we were probably going to get the same answers from her. We made the decision that we're just going to cut this down because she's not going to give us anything else that we need.
The cops get a search warrant to seize electronics from the Knaefel home. They look through text messages and emails to try to find some sort of reasoning for why this might have happened. But what they find is not what they expected.
Over the past several weeks, Kevin Knaefel and Sabrina text messaged each other over 1,000 times. I did not think it was normal for a foster father and a foster daughter to have thousands of text messages between the two of them.
But Kevin and Sabrina certainly did not have your average stepfather and stepdaughter relationship. The cops reach out to Kevin and he agrees to talk to them, but only with his lawyer present.
Kevin, do you know anything that was happening at the house the night before you left for work that night?
Well, hang on a second. We just talking about his wife's work. What's going on at the house the night before is not his wife's work.
Okay. Where did your wife work at?
County Children's Family Services.
What did she do there?
She was a social worker for the children's.
Kevin is looking pretty nervous. At this point, he is likely aware that the cops suspect him of having an inappropriate relationship with his own daughter.
Were you and Lisa in the process of going through a divorce?
Okay, now we're getting outside the scope.
Kevin Knaefel was not willing to help the police in finding out exactly what happened to his wife. Why is he not cooperating with us?
Shouldn't Kevin be devastated? His wife has just been brutally killed, and yet he doesn't even want to talk to the cops about what happened? Clearly he's hiding something. After about 6 months have passed, there is finally a break in the case. While in jail, Sabrina agrees to talk to the prosecutor. She wants to tell her what happened. This could be the first step towards a plea agreement.
What we believe from conversations is that what led up to this homicide, to this murder, is that there was another party involved in planning that.
Yes. It was Kevin Knaefel, my foster father. It was Kevin's idea, and it was talked about after we were having relations.
This is truly shocking information, because now we know that not only were Sabrina and Kevin having an explicit relationship, but he was allegedly involved with planning her murder.
Him and Lisa were having problems in marriage. He wanted to get a divorce, but Haley, which is a 3-year-old daughter of his and her, was in the picture, and he wanted full custody. She would get custody or it would be shared, and he didn't want that happening. So the alternative was
for this to happen.
And just like that, we are now seeing the true motive behind why Sabrina killed Lisa.
When was it, after you started to live there on a daily basis, that your relationship with Kevin changed? When did the sexual nature start to change?
It all started not with sex, but with massages, because he was a truck driver and his legs would cramp, so it was inner thigh. Then it progressively got into sex.
Sabrina says that Kevin would repeatedly tell her that she could never tell anyone about the kind of stuff they did together. He said that if she did, then Sabrina would likely be taken away, and he would lose his foster parent license. Basically, Kevin convinced Sabrina that if she killed Lisa and got caught, she would likely only have to serve a few years behind bars, and that he would protect her. He also told her that he would be waiting for her when she got out, and at that point, with Lisa out of the way, they would be able to be together. This is obviously a pretty sick thing to do to someone in such a vulnerable position as Sabrina. And we know that she ultimately did agree to commit the murder. But now that the truth was out, things didn't play out the way that Kevin told Sabrina they would. She ended up pleading guilty to Lisa's murder and was sentenced to 30 years to life behind bars without a possibility of parole. Meanwhile, Kevin was also charged in connection to Lisa's murder, ultimately convicted. He received 40 years to life for his crimes. Do you think this outcome is fair? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This last incredibly disturbing case is very recent, happening in July of 2024. So there are still a lot of details that will be coming out, but this is what we know so far. On July 7th, a 16-year-old girl named Julia Elger from Palm Beach, Florida, called the cops to report a home invasion. She said that both her mother and her mother's boyfriend had been killed. But when the cops arrived at the scene, they would soon figure out that things were not what they seem. Upon the arrival of the cops, Julia met them outside her home, stating that she and her dog had hidden in her room while a burglar broke in through a sliding back door. She claimed that once the burglar left, she found her mother, 38-year-old Kelly McColm, and her mother's boyfriend, 22-year-old Matthew Sejnarok, dead. But it didn't take long for the cops to find inconsistencies within Julia's story. Bloody footprints matching her shoes were found all over the house. Glass from the sliding door was on top of the bodies, and home security footage showed no sign of a break-in. These discrepancies led investigators to eventually question Julia about whether she was actually telling them the truth. At that point, she gave in and confessed to both of the murders.
They were responding to a 911 call about a break-in, but ended up arresting the woman's daughter. 16-year-old Julia Egler is accused of shooting and killing her mother and her mother's boyfriend before police say she placed a phony 911 call for help.
Julia apparently told the cops that she carefully planned out this whole thing. She went into her mother's bedroom and stole her firearm when her mother and her boyfriend were both out. She then grabbed a chef's knife from the kitchen and waited for them to come back. Julia said that she greeted them both in the kitchen with the firearm in hand and the knife in her pocket. She said, "Welcome home," and then her mother multiple times, killing her. Edler then turned the weapon on Matthew, who pleaded for his life and tried to escape into the bathroom. She continued firing at him until she ran out of bullets, and then began attacking him with the knife. At one point, Matthew apparently begged Julia to put him out of his misery, so she reloaded her weapon and fired at him one more time, killing him in the head.
Earlier today, we obtained the police report, which reveals very chilling details.
When they're passing by, they're always waving to everybody. So it's just like what I said, it's just shocking that, things happen to good people.
Rosalinda Canina told us she's having a hard time dealing with the fact that her neighbors here on Benshore Road in Palm Bay were victims of a horrible crime.
After completing both of the murders, Julia staged the home to look like there had been a break-in. She revealed to the cops that she disapproved of her mother's relationship with a man 16 years younger, and that they had disagreements about her decision to change genders. Julia was born male and was transitioning to a female. These issues had reached a boiling point and are are ultimately what made her decide to take their lives.
It's horrible. I mean, I don't know the details. It's just shocking to know that that kind of violence happens, especially with a young person.
Right now, Julia is facing 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder. However, before any trial date can be set, it will have to be determined whether or not Julia is considered mentally fit. If she's not, she may have to undergo mental health treatment and could face trial at a later time. Right now, there are still so many questions about this shocking case, with more details sure to be coming soon in the future. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.